Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2025, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 77 years of independence, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 as part of awareness and campaigns, and also Viksit Bharat at 2047 in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemorations. Today is commemorated as International Public Domain Day in US, which is celebrated on 1st January every year to shed some light on the copyright laws in the US. Today is also known as Copyright Laws Day in US, and see what happens when they end. The answer is that copyrighted items become part of the public domain. That means they can be used without any copyright restrictions once their copyright expires. So this means that the works of numerous artists, including writers, photographers, and musicians, patents, and various scientists and literary artists can then be used for rewritten for numerous information sites. And yes, the permission of the artist or author is no longer needed. So let's observe this day by finding out what will become a part of public domain this year. So copyright protection terms trademark the work of an individual. However, according to the law, if a copyright is not renewed or if the author of the creation has been dead for a certain number of years, the work becomes part of public domain. While the duration of the law is 70 years in the US, each country may have its own set of rules. Hence, 70 years after the death of an author, his work becomes a public domain, fully accessible to everyone. It is to celebrate the free access that International Public Domain Day is celebrated each year. So the origin seems to be unclear, but Wallace McLean was one of the first to mention this day in the year 2004. He is a Canadian public domain activist. Public domain availability is such a big deal that several websites research and provides a list of works that will be available yearly. So to celebrate Public Domain Day 2011, the Open Knowledge Foundation launched the Public Domain Review, a website that reviews various works which have been entered the public domain. Due to US copyright laws, Americans have so far received access to some great literary works such as F. Scott, The Great Gatsby, Virginia Woolf's Mr. Dalloway, Ernest Hemingway's In Our Time, and Franz Kafka's The Trial, and the jazz standard suite Georgia Brown, and so on. So the Copyright Act of 1790 was formed, which has taken the first step in US in 1790, and the Copyright Act is revised and extended to 28 years in 1831. And Congress amends the Copyright Act to prohibit commercial lending of computer software, going digital in 1990 in US. All works first published or released before January 1st, 1926 lose their copyright protection in 2021. So that's a great fun and enjoyment and relief for all. So whatever is published before January 1st, 1926, they are free to use. They are no longer copyrighted. So the first 10 books in Edgar's Tarzan series are currently in the global public domain. The remaining 14 books in the series, which he published between 1912 and 1966, are still under copyright in the US. So songs also enter the public domain 50 to 75 years after the death of the last surviving creator, that is writer, composer, and so on. So different countries have different copyright protection tenures. So it depends on the tenure of the copyright. A popular publicity photo of American singer and actress Doris Day is in the public domain. The film still from the Love Me or Leave Me trailer, whose photographer remains unknown, was published in US in 1957. So there are so many books, research, movies that will be in public domain this year. Find out which ones and enjoy the new knowledge. Copyrights and the public domain are areas that may be confusing for some. So use this day to spread knowledge about their laws and the scope. Write a fun blog post or about the movies, songs, shows that will be in public domain in the next few years. Share your article or on LinkedIn or Medium or submit it to print or digital newspapers so that we can create more events or even attend these kind of online webinars or programs where you can get knowledge about latest commemorations. Dr. Sui's work is also in the public domain since he died in 1990. His works will enter the public domain in 2085. So works by agencies or certain governments, such content is in the public domain from its time of its creation, like United Nations, many of these awareness programs and central state governments and public offices, departments, they create a lot of data, which may be the reports or notifications or data related to programs, beneficiaries, which they are put in public domain for verification and also information. So such content is in the public domain from the time of its creation. So it can be freely used. So the use of Shakespeare's Romeo Juliet is also a copyright infringement. The song entered the public domain only recently, even though the melody was composed in 1893 and the words were written in 1912. You know, the Happy Birthday to You song, it also has copyright laws, but it recently entered into the public domain. So now you can freely use, there is no copyright for that Happy Birthday to You song, which is popularly sung on birthdays. And the first commercial non-arcade video games will also enter the US public domain in 2073. So this day is important as it makes work public. So it celebrates the important works of art and literature that have been made public over the time. And this day reminds us to look forward to the ones to come. So we are made aware of all the books and movies that will soon be part of the public domain. This gives us knowledge. We need to access materials we love for free. The day also celebrates the spread of knowledge and information. It spreads another means by which knowledge is made accessible to a much wider population. Today is also commemorated as Euro Day on January 1st in the memorial of when 11 European nations adopted the euro, ushering in a new era for continent. The idea of a European currency was raised as early as 1929. But it wasn't until 70 years later that the euro finally came into existence. The euro is a currency used as a legal tender by 19 countries, including Croatia, Denmark, Sweden, and Hungary. It is also used by non EU members, territories such as Andorra, Monaco, Vatican City, Kosovo, and Montenegro. The idea of single currency for the European continent was first proposed before the League of Nations by Gustav Stresemann in 1929. This idea came as a result of the after effect of the World War I, in which more European nations were created, leading to more economic divisions. The idea of a economy or of an economic and monetary union in Europe did not take root until 1969, when the European Council tasked the then Prime Minister of Luxembourg, Pierre Werner, to develop plans for reducing currency exchange rate volatility. However, these plans for the European Monetary Union suffered a setback when the US removed the gold backing from the US dollar, crashing all major currencies. So in 1979, the plan was reviewed with the introduction of the European monetary system to stabilize exchange rates and counter inflation by fixing exchange rates onto the European currency unit. In 1988, monetary cooperation with the central bank was proposed at the European Council summit. The European Commission, France, and Italy agreed to it, but the British were in opposition. But it didn't stop the European leaders from signing the Maastricht Treaty on February 7, 1990, forming the European Union. The name euro was adopted for the new currency in 1995, and January 1st, 1999 was set as a launch date. At the midnight of 1st January 1999, the euro was introduced in non-fiscal form and the currencies of the participating nations officially ceased to exist. Although their physical currencies, coins, and notes continued to be used as legal tender until January 1st, 2002, when euro notes were introduced. So today is also commemorated as Copyright Law Day in US, set aside for all creatives to appreciate the role of copyright law in ensuring legal use of their creations and encourage people to support and uphold law. The first copyright statute was enacted over 311 years ago by the British Parliament. Copyright law is a set of rights automatically vested on someone who creates an original work of authorship. These rights include reproduction, derivative works, distribution, public performance and display, and digital distribution. Copyrights cover all literary works, software, movies, and songs. Copyrights are exclusive to the creator, preventing another people from using their work without permission. While the first copyright statute was enacted in Britain in the 18th century, the earliest record case law on the right to copy was in ancient Ireland. The course arose in 6th century Ireland. There was a dispute about the ownership of the Catachop, one of the oldest Irish writings. In settling the case, King Dermot Mac Cerbel said, "To every cow belongs to her calf, therefore to every book belongs to its copy." This ruling eventually led to the Battle of Culrem. Ancient Roman, in all its glory and magnificence, didn't have copyright law. That was because there wasn't any need. Books which were expensive to buy and maintain were copied by literate slaves. So that means anyone who tries to copy someone else's work would have to spend much money as a professional publisher. However, there was no protection for the original authors, so publishers exploited. With the introduction of printing press in 1400s and 1500s, government authorities saw an increase in need to control book publications. The English government first developed a licensing act in the 16th century. This act conferred the Stationers' Company, an organization of English printers, the power to acquire all lawfully printed books to be entered into the register. When the act came to an end in 1695, the English Parliament chose not to renew it. In 1710, the English Parliament enacted the Statute of Anne, the first Copyright Act. This statute granted publishers legal protection of 14 years on any book they publish, including 21 years of protection for any book already in print. This statute, however, did not apply in America, even though it was a British colony. But in 1789, proposals were submitted by both James Madison of Virginia and Charles Courtworth Whitney of South Carolina to Congress for limited copyright and patents. This that eventually led to the copyright clause in the United States Constitution. Copyright has evolved ever since with successive court rulings and Senate modifications. Today is also commemorated as Global Family Day internationally, celebrated every year on January 1st, which starts with the new year with a positive message of the unity to the world. Believe it or not, we all are one. We all belong to one family, Vasudhaivaka Kutumbakam. Cultures and religions across the world may be different, but the truth is all of mankind is a large family that can survive and succeed only if united. And yes, that is the goal that can be achieved. All that is required is spreading the message of peace and unity. Global Family Day, also known as World Peace Day, is celebrated every year to promote concept of harmony and unity in the world. Furthermore, it emphasizes the idea of world as a global village in which we all are family regardless of citizenship, borders, or race. It all started in 1997 when the United Nations General Assembly launched the International Decade for the Culture of Peace and Non-Violence for the Children of World as of the first day of new millennium. Linda Grover was a key figure in promoting this in the US, and other efforts to promote it included books such as One Day in Peace, January 1st, 2000. This book revolved around the concept of a day in future where there is only peace and no war. However, this was just the beginning of a new peaceful world, and in 1999, all UN member states received an invitation to formally dedicate the first day of that particular year to develop strategies towards peace building. Seeing the positive impact of the day, Global Family Day was declared as an annual event by the UN in 2001. Global family refers to the concept of a global village where different parts of the world are seen as one community. It is an international day celebrated to promote world peace. Events are often organized, conducted by organizations, and the importance of united world is emphasized. Watch a movie or documentary on peace building or read up on it online in the library or internet. Martin Luther King was a civil rights leader recognized for fighting for human rights through peaceful protest. The philosophy of nonviolent protest, like Gandhi, the world spends more on war. Yearly $1.8 trillion is spent on arms globally. The UN peacekeeping system costs $50 billion. According to the result of 2020, Ireland is the most peaceful country in the world. Afghanistan is number 163 in the Global Peace Index, which is almost a war zone. Working towards a better future, 184 organizations in the US are working towards peace building. No matter which part of the world we reside in, the fact is that we all are human beings with hearts flooded with love. Our differences have been created by politicians, and it's like Global Family Day that reminds us how connected we are. Global Family Day is essential since it highlights that people of all races, religions, and countries are one. By celebrating it every year, we ingrain a message of peace in the younger generation. By constantly drumming the message of peace into the youth, we are raising leaders who will oppose war and, in effect, ensure the mistakes of the past are never repeated. Today is also commemorated as Haitian independence on January 1st in Haiti, which made a history for being the first country in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery on January 1st, 1804. Ancestors' Day and Independence Day are commemorated on the first 2 days of the calendar year. January 2 honors the founders of the nation and the people who sacrificed their lives during the first fight for independence. The world was shocked as the Haitian Revolution happened. They refused to believe that the former slaves understood the depths of freedom any more than they did. Despite both Americans and the French proclaiming that all men are created equal, they didn't arrive at the natural conclusion that racial discrimination and slavery are gross violations of basic human rights. Haiti's independence shattered the world's understanding of liberty and freedom. The monumental event holds global historical significance and will continue for centuries to come. Today is also commemorated as First Food Day internationally in celebrating about New Year as per the Scottish and North England tradition of bringing good luck upon your home by being the first person to set foot inside at the beginning of the new year. The similar practice of first footing are also found in many traditions, including Greek and uh, Georgian traditions. This is not just many more interesting things around this festival. Even in India, also in various cultures, we see there is a practice of stepping, every year or before starting a new home or housewarming ceremony, before, taking any premises for lease, we always step in with the first foot that indicates the official possession and also bringing in good luck. So the belief is that one who will first set foot in your house cannot be someone who was inside when midnight struck. So it's okay if an occupant of the house deliberately stays outside till midnight and then enters after midnight. Therefore, to observe this day, people stay just outside their homes until midnight of the New Year Eve, just going in. Traditionally, young boys have been first footers for the communities. The craze for First Food Day was so popular in England and Scotland that in those days, on New Year's Day, between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning, the streets were more crowded than the homes as everybody wanted to first food their way. Today, the custom of first footing and the First Food Day celebrations are observed even in UK and US and many areas, places. Today is also commemorated as Commitment Day, which is commemorated every January 1st, is a time to demonstrate your affections by committing in one way or the other to that person or persons close to your heart. Did you know the first recorded act of commitment between two persons was 4,350 years ago in ancient Mesopotamia when two people were joined together in a marriage ceremony? Marriages has been greatest act of commitment, a show of affection, respect and underlying love, and the willingness to spend a lifetime together. Commitment is not only limited to saying I do or till death do us apart. You can also make a commitment to yourself in areas of personal or professional development, or in simply living a healthier lifestyle. There is no commitment as important or as strong as the commitment in matrimony to love someone for the rest of your life. There is also commemorated as New Year's Dishonor List Day in US. So what may seem like a joke to most is actually celebrated as New Year's Dishonor List Day at Lake Superior State University, Michigan, on every January 1st, New Year's Day. So what happens on this day is that a PR team in LSSU collect nominations of different words and phrases from all around the US and then select the most overused ones, which feature on the dishonored list and published on the school's website for removal from the English language. Words and phrases that, because of overuse, have become catchphrases are voted for removal by a panel from the university. While maintaining and emphasizing the need to keep the English language well adjusted and polished and to preserve its overall excellence, the university strongly discourages the use of overused, exhausted, and redundant words and phrases. And it is for this reason we observe New Year's Dishonors List Day on January 1st. It is also commemorated as Polar Bear Plunge Day in US on January 1st. It is not for the faint of heart or the very timid. Ice swimming is for the bold and daring. Plunging into January's frigid waters is nothing short of some insane yet invigorating way to celebrate the first day of the every new year. Those courageous, some might say foolish, souls who don't know swim trunks and bikinis to splash their way into icy cold winters claim they are freezing in for a reason, usually to raise money for a good cause. Then again, there are polar bear swimmers who just like the idea of doing something wild and crazy that doesn't involve alcohol or kick off the new year. A polar bear plunge, also known as polar bear swim or ice swimming, is a cold weather winter event. Participants gather at a designated time on the edge of a local body of water where they all plunge into the water at the same time, usually at the shrill blast of starter whistle. Most plungers rush to make their way in and out of the bone chilling water quickly. Others try easing their way in. A few daredevils throw themselves into the icy wetness with abandon, usually the first timers. Regardless of the speed at which they enter, everyone is eager to leave the water and escape the effects of biting cold on their naked skin. So polar bear swim clubs have been around in US for more than a century. The oldest documented US Day polar bear plunge even took place in 1904 when the L Street Boundings, a swim club founded in 1902 in South Boston, Massachusetts, took their first icy cold plunge together into Dorchester Bay. They have been celebrating the arrival of each new year with a polar bear plunge ever since. Regular ice water swimmers say that the thrill of chill increases energy levels and sharpens the mind. And although there seem to be some actual health benefits to skinny dipping in cold water, we heard that you can achieve the same result just by getting a good night's sleep. Today is also commemorated as Sudan Independence Day in Sudan. On January 1st, it is celebrated annually to commemorate the independence of the nation from Great Britain. Sudan is the third largest nation in the African continent. Sudan is an Arab as well as African nation. The nation lies between Red Sea, Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, Chad, Libya, and Egypt. The nation is rich in natural resources, arable land, a young workforce, and agriculture. Until 1956, the nation was under the rule of British and Egypt. Ismail al-Azari was responsible for forming a government as prime minister on January 9, 1954. Sudan formally attained its independence from Britain and Egypt on January 1st, 1956. Today is also commemorated as Triumph of the Revolution in Cuba, also known as Liberation Day, is celebrated on January 1st every year to commemorate the victory of revolutionaries led by Fidel Castro. The Cuban Revolution was an armed rebellion against the military dictatorship of Cuban President Fulgencio Batista. It started in 1953 and ended in 1959 with the triumph of revolutionaries and the fleeings of the dictator to the US as Castro established his government in Cuba. The day is marked by celebratory military parades, revolutionary poster marches, concerts, and fireworks all over Cuba. Today is also commemorated as Universal Hour of Peace on January 1st every year, which is an important day as it draws attention towards building peaceful relations among different groups and states. Today, countries invest in developing sophisticated and lethal weapons that can obliterate entire cities in a blast. Universal Hour of Peace seeks to convince people everywhere that the peace is more sustainable than violence and less expensive. Dr. Barbara O'Guin Candron of School of Metaphysics came with the idea of Universal Hour of Peace, calling on leaders in government, education, and business to proclaim an hour of peaceful thought and action. Today, it has been an international celebration of peace, tolerance, and cooperation. The main idea is to start the new year with peace and love. Soldiers refrain for an hour from shooting, and people try to do their best to avoid getting into unnecessary fights and arguments. The United Nations also plays a vital role in promoting global peace and cooperation. When the Second World War ended, the United Nations was the idea of self organized peace has gained a lot of popularity in recent times. According to this concept, world peace can be achieved through the support of an effective, self organized community or network. One of the key elements of this theory is acceptance and diversity. All people should be treated the same, irrespective of their culture, religion, age, or ethnicity. Various social networks and online communities have also emerged in recent times to support the concept of self organized peace. Today is also commemorated as World Day of Peace on January 1st, which is primarily a Catholic feast day dedicated to universal peace on the solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God. On the occasion of popes generally make authoritative declarations on the Catholic social teachings, CST. The theme of the fest has always been about creating a culture of care. The Pope and the Vatican Church stress the need to care and share tolerance for each other and to create a society that focuses on good moral values and does not yield to the temptation to disregard others. The benefits of the peaceful society have been emphasis of every year's World Day of Peace. There is also commemorated as Rose Bowl game in US, which is played every January 1st as one of the New Year's six bowls that host one of the college football's playoffs, CFP, triannual semi-final games. It also hosts the conference champions from the Big Ten and Pac-12 conferences during non-CFP years. Rose Bowl game started 120 years ago, and it was It is also commemorated as Ring a Bell Day on January 1st, gives even more reason to love New Year's Day. This less known but still fascinating festival honors bells, bell towers, bell makers, and bell ringers from all over America. Ringing in the new year is a long established tradition. This is a way of bringing people together to celebrate memories of one year and anticipate goodness in the year ahead. On the New Year's Day, communities gather with bells erupting into melodious symphony overhead, bell ringing that became a symbol of joy and a highly respected skill. This is particularly true in case of ringing homogeneous church bells. It takes a lot of rhythm. Bell ringing has become a symbol of joy and highly respected skill. This is particularly true in case of ringing homogeneous bells. It takes a lot of rhythm and strength and technique to master the art and produce the peals that everyone knows and loves. Even in temples, you see bells once you enter the temple. And when you are offering prayers, you also ring the bell. Day is also commemorated as New Year's Day in US, a time of optimism, planning, and resolutions. There is a feeling that maybe this year we'll make changes. We have been meaning to more rest, better eating habits. New Year's Day is about taking a moment to get ready for everything that is about to unfold. Basically, this is a Gregorian calendar adopted as part of Gregorian calendar. There is also commemorated as National Hangover Day, as this uh, 2 days, 31st and 1st, has been celebrated as World Drinkers Day or World Drunkers Day or International Drunkers Day. As we see, the sales of drinks go up, skyrocketing to the maximum potential, and people keep drinking for no benefits. So New Year Eve is often New Year's Eve, and also New Year is often a time to seriously party by many. There is a decent chance that New Year with one or two or six cocktails are unlimited. Unfortunately, drinking too much can bring some rather unpleasant results. Alcohol can get pretty unfriendly 12 hours after that. So if New Year's Day turns into National Hangover Day, there is also commemorated as Apple Gifting Day in US as part of many tradition ways of marking New Year's Day, because apples symbolize good health. Giving people apples on New Year's Day is wishing them good health for the rest of the year. The best thing about apples is that so because apples symbolize good health, giving people apples on New Year's Day is wishing them good health for the rest of the year. The best thing about apples is that there are varieties of them: candied apples, apples for tarts and sweet dishes, and apples for raw eating. So, Apple Gifting Day, give an apple to your loved ones. There is also commemorated as Z Day. Z is a mysterious yet intriguing day that occurs on every January 1st. Z Day is not Zombies Day. It's a day when alphabetical order is reversed and those whose names begin with the letter Z come first in all matters of alphabet sequence. Your name is always called last on the register because it starts with Z. Today it's going to be the other way around. Did you know around 300 BC, the letter Z was removed? The letter Z was removed from the alphabet because it was considered useless around 300 BC, but thankfully it was returned to the alphabet so that people named Zach didn't have to be renamed Yak or Rak or Sack. Today is also commemorated as Ellis Island Day in US to celebrate the island that served as a gateway to America during the immigration wave of 1892 and through 1950. Once you can imagine that during peak of currently, such an operation no longer exists on the island, which can only be accessed by ferry. The island is part of the Statue of Liberty National Monument, including the Statue of Liberty, National Museum of Immigration, and Ellis Island Immigrant Hospital. It is also commemorated as National Bloody Mary Day in US, which is convenient for everyone who may have a partied a little too much when the night before. So with this, we shall conclude today's commemoration. Thank you everyone for joining us. So you can fill up the feedback form before leaving the platform. The feedback form has been raised in the form of polls. We request everyone to quickly fill up the feedback. See you all tomorrow. Take care. Good night.